All right, the energy tape has just delivered a set of numbers that confirms the global economy has entered a terminal hyperinflationary loop. Today, Sunday, March 8th, 2026, as the pre-market terminals begin to flicker to life, the data is screaming that the energy-to-resource bridge has officially collapsed. John AG has been tracking the cost of diesel as the primary input for silver extraction for over a decade, but what we are witnessing tonight is a total systemic failure of the Western pricing model. While the mainstream headlines are trying to calm the public about the $12.50 per gallon fuel quotes, the internal mechanics of the industrial supply chain are signaling a no-offer status for strategic metals. We are looking at a world where the cost of moving atoms has become so high that the paper price on your screen has become a complete fiction. The fuel lockdown is the final catalyst that is snapping the neck of the paper silver shorts as the cost of production flies past the $100 mark in real time. The data hitting the terminal regarding global shipping and mining logistics is simply catastrophic for anyone holding digital silver claims. We are seeing confirmed reports that 3 of the largest primary silver mines in the high-altitude regions of Peru have suspended operations because they cannot source the fuel required to run their heavy extraction equipment. John AG is doing the math for you. When energy costs represent 40% of a miner's total overhead and fuel prices triple in a single quarter, the all-in sustaining cost, ASC, moves into a territory where selling metal at spot price is a form of corporate suicide. Today, the miners are choosing to keep their silver in the ground rather than exchange it for depreciating currency that cannot even buy the diesel they need to dig. This is the definition of a supply strike, and it is being driven by the brutal reality of an energy collapse. Look at the divergence in global sentiment as the Eastern markets prepare for the full Monday morning open. The BRICS Plus Energy Coalition has just issued a strategic resource mandate, signaling that all future fuel exports will be settled in hard asset units or physical gold and silver only. John AG has warned you that the petrodollar was the only thing standing between the paper silver market and a triple-digit physical reality. Tonight, that barrier has been vaporized. We are watching the birth of the petro-silver era, where energy is the currency and silver is the collateral. The West is finding out that you cannot bail out an oil refinery with a digital ledger entry, and you certainly cannot manufacture silver atoms through a quantitative easing program. The fuel lockdown is the sound of the world's real producers demanding physical payment for physical resources. The systemic overload we've been discussing throughout the weekend has now moved into the logistics hubs of the G7 nations. We are receiving reports of National Guard security being deployed to several major fuel distribution centers to prevent hoarding as prices hit the $12 mark. John AG knows what this means for the silver market. When the public's mobility is restricted by the high cost of energy, the velocity of money doesn't slow down. It pivots. People are realizing that their digital bank balances are being consumed by inflation at a rate of 2% per week. This is creating a black hole of demand for physical silver as the only accessible safe haven that can still be traded outside the digital cage. They are locking the gas pumps while the smart money is locking the vault doors on the remaining 55 million ounces of registered silver. The industrial panic has reached a state of absolute seizure for the tech sector tonight as the Sunday pre-market reveals a total decoupling. John AG has primary sources inside the logistics department of a major EV battery firm who says their silver paste delivery has been delayed indefinitely due to a fuel surcharge dispute. The manufacturers are realized that their green future is being held hostage by the cost of fossil fuel extraction. You cannot build a solar-powered grid without silver, and you cannot get silver without the very oil the green energy movement is trying to replace. This energy paradox is currently destroying the paper-silver market because the manufacturers are now bypassing the COMEX to buy directly from refiners at a 60% premium. They are bidding $180 an ounce for physical grain tonight because their billion-dollar factories cannot run on paper promises. The news from the Mexican energy sector is the alpha trigger for this morning's market explosion. The Mexican government has officially reserved 100% of their domestic silver production for their own strategic energy transition, citing the high cost of importation as the primary reason. Mexico has realized that exporting silver for dollars that are losing value against the price of diesel is a losing game. John AG is tracking the diplomatic cables, and the resource nationalization trend is spreading through South America like a wildfire. If the West cannot provide the energy the producers need to dig, the producers will keep the metal to back their own local economies. The Western registered vault is now a historical relic. an empty warehouse in a world that is starving for conductivity and liquid fuel. The $35 trillion debt wall is the background radiation of this energy crisis. The interest on the U.S. debt is now a mathematical tsunami that is swallowing the entire financial system. John A.G. sees the price explosion at the petrol pumps as the final symptom of a currency that has lost its soul. When it takes an entire week's wages for an average worker to fill a truck, the social contract is broken. In this environment, the only assets that maintain their purchasing power are those with high energy density and extreme physical scarcity. Silver is the perfect candidate for this reset. It is a store of energy and a store of value. The fuel lockdown today is the market's way of telling you that the era of cheap everything is dead and the era of physical reality has begun. Look at the gold to silver ratio as it compresses toward the 12-to-1 mark in the shadow markets tonight. This is the energy metal reset that John A.G. has been preparing you for, the moment when the cost of extraction becomes the primary driver of value. For 50 years, the ratio was held at 80-to-1 because energy was cheap and paper was abundant. Today, energy is expensive and paper is worthless. The math is forcing the ratio back to the reality of the Earth's crust. We are watching the most violent revaluation of silver in human history as it catches up to the energy-adjusted cost of living. The banks thought they could hide the silver shortage behind an algorithm. They forgot that the algorithm doesn't run the drill at the mine site. Diesel does. And when the diesel is $12, the silver is $200. Every emergency update I provide is rooted in the primary source data of the vaults and the energy shipping logs. The tape tonight is telling us that the plumbing of the global exchanges is officially blocked by a lack of affordable transport. We are seeing record-high fails to deliver being reported as the logistics firms refuse to ship physical metal without massive energy surcharges that the paper exchanges refuse to pay. This means that even if you own silver in a London vault, you cannot get it to your front door without paying a premium that exceeds the spot price. John A.G. is telling you that the fuel lockdown is the final gate. In a world of restricted movement and high-cost energy, the only silver that matters is the silver you have in your own physical possession. If you don't hold it, you don't own it, and you certainly can't move it. The face of shock you see in the thumbnails is the face of the institutional economist who realized their linear models did not account for a 300% spike in energy costs during a silver delivery cycle. John A.G. sees this panic in the volume profile of the Sunday pre-market. There is a massive ask vacuum. People are bidding for petrol, people are bidding for silver, but the sellers have vanished. The owners of the resources are waiting for the total reset of the currency. They know that the Western system is insolvent and that the fuel lockdown is the catalyst for the ultimate wealth transfer. The hunter has become the prey, and the prey is out of gas. The out-of-service signs are the only honest communication the system has left for the public tonight. The central banks of the BRICS nations are currently finalizing the digital infrastructure for an energy-backed commodity ledger. John A.G. is tracking the diplomatic flows, and silver is being positioned as the micro-collateral for this new system. This is the endgame for the dollar-denominated silver trade. When the world's major manufacturers and energy producers decide to trade in a unit backed by the very resources the world needs to function, the global demand for the dollar drops to zero overnight. We are watching a hostile takeover of global price discovery by the people who actually produce the energy and the metals. The paper changers are being evicted, and they are leaving with nothing but empty tanks and empty vaults. This is the opening bell for the new monetary era, where the physical bar and the fuel barrel are the only laws. The no-hype philosophy is about looking at the mathematics of the energy tax on mining. If you look at the quarterly reports of the top primary silver miners from last week, their energy costs have overtaken labor costs for the first time in history. This is a fundamental shift in the geology of finance. John A.G. knows that there are 8 billion people on this planet and only a few 100 million ounces of deliverable silver left in the West. The exit is narrow, and only the people who acted before the fuel lockdown occurred will be able to secure their future. You are not trading, you are securing your existence against a systemic reset that is being driven by the physical shortage of everything that matters. Mexico's move toward energy and resource sovereignty is the ultimate confirmation of the resource war. If the Mexican government decides that their silver and fuel are too strategic to export to the G7 at current paper prices, the Western financial system becomes a historical footnote within hours. John A.G. is monitoring the diplomatic tension, and it is at a level of intensity that suggests the Monday morning open will be a gap into the unknown. The West is realizing that it cannot run a high-tech military or a green economy on paper promises when the petrol and diesel pumps are being locked down. They need the physical atoms, but those atoms are in the hands of the producers who are now demanding a seat at the table of global power. If you don't own the physical metal, you are merely a spectator in a war for survival. The industrial hunger for silver in 2026 has reached a terminal point where the military-industrial complex is now in a direct bidding war with the tech sector for every available ounce. Every high-tech missile, every satellite, and every advanced communication system requires silver for its superior conductivity, and every one of those systems requires energy to build and deploy. John A.G. has confirmed that the strategic national stockpile in several Western nations is functionally zero tonight. They have cannibalized their own reserves to maintain their current defense posture. This means there is no backstop for the currency. There is no government rescue coming when the retail public finally realizes the banks are empty and the fuel is gone. When the registered vaults hit zero, the market will move to no offer status. The John A.G. logo stands for Financial Warfare Education, because we are in a war for the truth. The institutions have the media, the politicians, and the printing presses. But we have the tape, we have the numbers, and most importantly, we have the physical. Today's energy data is a total validation for everyone who ignored the hype and focused on the registered drain. We are on the right side of history, and the great wealth transfer is the event we are living through right now. The $35 trillion system is functionally dead. It just hasn't realized it yet because the digital screens are still pretending everything is normal. But the fuel lockdown proved that the illusion is fragile and the reset is inevitable. The physical world is finally demanding its due. As the London shadow markets prepare for the next fix, the ask prices in the private dealer networks have jumped another 40% in the last 4 hours. John A.G. is seeing silver bars being traded for gold bars at a ratio of 15-1 in the private vaults of Singapore and Dubai tonight. The official price is a joke that only the uninformed still believe. The real price is being set by the people who have the metal in their possession and are refusing to sell it for a currency that cannot buy diesel. This is the market decoupling in its terminal stage. By the time the news tells you that silver is the new energy, there will be none left to buy at any price. You are the early minority who saw the math, tracked the tape, and prepared for the exit to be closed. I want to highlight the psychological warfare being used against you today. The headlines tomorrow morning will talk about temporary energy surcharges and technical market adjustments. This is a lie designed to keep you from pulling your value out of the failing digital systems. They want to trap you in the bail-in zone before the physical reality becomes undeniable. John A.G. has seen this movie before. In every crisis, they tell the public that everything is fine right up until the moment they lock the doors. But the 2026 scenario is different because the energy shortage is so acute that they cannot hide it with paper contracts anymore. The truth is leaking out through the premiums at the pump and the empty vaults in New York. Don't be a victim of their digital illusions tonight. The fuel lockdown wasn't a glitch, it was a strategic realization. The manufacturers and the sovereigns have realized that the paper system is a threat to their survival. John A.G. knows that silver is the ultimate freedom asset. You cannot turn off a physical silver bar with a keystroke. You cannot tax a transaction that happens in physical metal outside of their digital surveillance system. This is why they are so desperate to keep the price suppressed. They want you dependent on their digital lies and their rationed fuel. But the physical world is finally demanding its due. The producers are striking, the East is bidding 195s, and the vaults are empty. The paper system is burning, and the fire is spreading to the foundation of the global banking infrastructure. The melt-up is the funeral of the old dollar. We are heading into a window of time that will define the next decade of your life. The March delivery madness has reached a terminal velocity, and the bullion banks are staring into an abyss of physical default. John A.G. predicts that we will see force majeure declared on several major energy and commodity exchanges before the weekend is over. This will effectively end the futures market and move the world back to a physical-only trade model. The paper trap has officially snapped shut. If you are in the physical, you have a seat on the lifeboat. If you are in the paper, you are part of the ship. Stay sharp, watch the tape, and remember, the system has officially snapped under the weight of the fuel lockdown. The collateral has been seized and the truth is out. I'll leave you with this final thought for the morning update. The exit is closed, the vaults are empty, the real value is in your hand. John A.G. will be back for the 7:30 a.m. morning update as the New York pit opens to what will likely be the most volatile energy and resource session in history. We are living through the greatest wealth transfer in 500 years, and the data is the only light in the fog of financial warfare. Stay disciplined, watch the premiums in Shanghai, and for the love of everything, keep your eye on the physical. The paper market is a sinking ship, and the fire has reached the boiler room. It is time to step out of the illusion and into the reality of physical metal. The fuel lockdown has changed everything tonight. All right, I'm out.